pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, on today's agenda, we have two business items. We'll start with business item number 1, public hearing, zoning code amendment proposal. Mr. Eggett?
Thank you. This is pretty much the same report that we had 2 planning commission meetings ago back on August 14th. At the time of the August 14th meeting, after a robust discussion on this matter, it was requested to be tabled, or I guess it was approved to be tabled to allow staff further time to work with the applicant and also look at other ideas in light of the commentary and discussion that could be addressed. Since that time, as you can see, legal staff has worked with the development team and community development to put together code language, and this is really appreciated. Lisa's gone so far in getting this all put together and talking to both sides, like meaning community development and JF Capital, and really analyzing ways to accomplish what the state code has given us some latitude to do, and finding solutions to the request that has come forward from JF Capital. So what you see that she's handed out to you is her work on this. There's suggested amendments now to 12.41.070, variations from development standards, and amendments to 12.41.074, which is a new code, development agreements for planned development overlay zones. And I really appreciate her efforts on this. I will note, just as required, that we did meet all the public hearing notice requirements. It's been posted and advertised. You see that in your packet, that evidence of that. And then you'll see that we have provided her update comments. The original one from 8/22, she's provided a new one just today, 9/11's at the bottom of your packet. Then obviously the previous UCA call out 10-98/532 for development agreements per state code. The public hearing notice, the most recent one, is in the packet, and then the original application and the documentation supporting the original application. So with that, I will defer to you, Chairman Carrot, however you'd like to move forward and answer any questions that may come up. Thank you.
Okay, so zoning code amendment, the revenge. Anybody have any questions for staff?
Or do you want me to make any
Or
editorial comments?
that would be welcome, of course. I always like to hear from you, Mrs. Romney.
I thought it might be helpful to walk through these, and maybe, Sydney, if you can bring up I did attach the most recent amendment at the very end. Oh, yeah, there it is. But I thought it would be helpful just to sort of walk through each section and sentence and why we did why staff is recommending this. But last time, the proposed amendment we were looking at was proposed to amend section 080, which was just the plan development overlay zone approval. And so rather than putting these significant provisions hidden in the approval process, we pulled them out and said, look, let's put them up front where we already have this provision on the variations from development standards in 070, and then add a completely new section on the development agreement provision, so that it's very clear in the code, those sections. In addition, we talked about just allowing this, amending the existing PDO for Legacy Crossing rather than coming up with a text amendment. But I think as staff worked through this, and the more I read through the state law and what we're trying to accomplish here, I think it's an advantageous provision to have in our code, because we're saying we're willing to use development agreements, which we do already, without having a provision in our code, because it's allowed by law. But if we put this provision in our code, it allows us to add some requirements to it. Like, hey, we will allow development agreements for planned development overlays, but you have to comply with these conditions of approval that we've put in our code. So it sort of, I guess, levels the playing field on the contract negotiation. So, but that's one thing for the Planning Commission to rediscuss, is do we really want this in our code, or is it opening up the floodgates? But the second point to that is that this only is allowed, it's providing a provision for development agreements in conjunction with a plan development overlay. Now, in full disclosure, I don't think that we're prohibited from entering into a development agreement in a different situation that meets state law, meaning it's not a cookie cutter subdivision that meets all of our other code provisions, because you can't require a development agreement for that anymore. But just to say, I still think we could do that, but this is just trying to clarify, we're doing it for plan development overlays. So maybe with that, if we could just go kind of quickly over some of these provisions. But the first sentence here, the changes to this saying, right now our variations from development standards in a PDO is from the underlying zone and the subdivision ordinance, and that's it. By practice, I believe we have allowed additional variations from vague provisions of our general plan or other provisions of our zoning code. So this first sentence is to really broaden that to cover everything that we're already doing, which is to say, with a PDO, you can vary the general plan, the zoning code, the subdivision ordinance, and the municipal code. You can vary any of those. And then the second sentence gives us some examples of those, which we talked about as staff. Do we want to add examples or not? But I feel like the examples do give you a flavor. We're talking about density. We're talking about building height. We're talking about parking and setback. All of those things are on the table. But then we say that it cannot be a variance. We don't have the authority anyway to provide a variation from any kind of state law or construction code or any public health and safety. So I wanted to make that clear, that it's not a complete, hey, we can write whatever we want, even though that's sort of what the state law says. I think there are some limitations. And then I think it's about the third sentence, it says any variations approved have to be specifically described in the rezone ordinance or the development agreement. Now, this is one from my own experience where I feel like we have adopted some plan development overlays, and deep in page 5 of the detailed drawings or the exhibits that I'm not necessarily looking at, I'm looking at the conditions of approval and not the drawings, there's some alteration to the parking count or the landscaping. And that wasn't a specifically approved variation, but now here it is in the approved drawings. So I'd like a provision in here that says, hey, we need to spell it out, and it needs to be in the ordinance and in verbiage, either in the PDO ordinance or the development agreement. This is the topic that we're talking about, and this is the code that we're varying. And if you don't put it in there, it doesn't matter what's in your drawings. Your drawings are not approved as a variance. They need to come into compliance. So that's my request, and just in some experience of some of what we've approved and finding some conflicts with the drawings and other things on these complicated projects. And then also that that we retain full discretion to vary things. And I think this kind of came up from the Planning Commission's discussion of, wait a minute, we want to be in the driver's seat on these. If we're going to open up our books and, any variation is on the table, we need to make it clear that it's only within our sole discretion. And hopefully, it'll still be a little questionable with the standard of review on a legislative decision of full discretion, but it's going to be pretty much in our favor, I think, with that kind of language, that if we want to provide an amendment or variance, we can. So that's amendments to section 070, making it clear. Any questions on just what we're going to vary? And then the other thing is that in there, it provides the process for varying codes, which is either as part of the PDO rezone or as part of a development agreement. But either way, you have to follow like it's a rezone or a zoning text amendment with all that process as if it's a legislative decision. So then moving on to 070, this is just an entirely new section for development agreements for planned developments. And we're basically, the first sentence is recognizing state law now that says cities can enter into development agreements, which we always could, but it gives a lot more guidance and actually sort of broadens that authority, in my opinion. And then the next sentence is just saying that we are allowing developers of PDOs only in this section to use the development agreement option. And then the next sentence about that we're not giving up or, other land use laws, that's already in state law. So I'm just reflecting state law here in the next two sentences that are future authority or also the approval process. And then the next sentence, any development agreement for a PDO shall contain a provision limiting the city's liability to specific performance. So what this means is if anybody wants to challenge us for contractual breach or anything, we don't actually pay damages. We are just forced to perform whatever the contract said we were supposed to do. Like if we were supposed to allow this kind of development or this kind of height or this process, we just have to perform to the extent the contract requires it. But we would avoid the Tooele case where they owed millions of dollars on a contractual claim the governmental immunity did not cover. So I feel like with one sentence, we solved that huge, rat's nest of an issue. So, and then I guess the last sentence is, and I just wanted to clarify this because it originally just said, hey, this section on development agreements can be used to amend existing development agreements, but I thought, no, let's just be clear. This section can be used for any new development agreement entered into by the city for a PDO and to amend any existing development agreement. So that would cover all of the PDOs that are in existence right now, but it would also put them and the new developers of PDOs kind of on a similar level playing field, which feels more equitable to me in terms of our regulation and our framework. So that's the editorial commentary on these edits, but with the more specific language and tightening what we want to see in these developments and limiting them to PDOs, whether existing or new, I think it's a good tool for the city to have. But the Planning Commission can certainly discuss some of your prior concerns if we haven't covered those.
Thank you very much. I like that. All right, questions for staff?
Trying to remember, go back on, did we have written anywhere where our major prior concerns were?
Yeah, some of my notes indicated that, we didn't want to open up, the floodgates, and we were concerned about the not having governmental immunity for contractual arrangements.
Right, you took care of
We were
that.
sort of concerned about the standard of review where with a land use, like with a rezone decision, there's already a standard and an appeal process for rezone decisions. Whereas with development agreements, there's not that benefit. But I think if we put in here in our sole discretion and also considering, I think what some of the other cities have done in talking with other city attorneys is they've wrapped the development agreement in with the PDO overlay rezone decision, which is clearly a legislative decision. Now, I don't know that we win, or get the reasonably debatable standard of review on the development agreement, but we would argue that we should, because we're going through the same process. And let me see if there was anything else that the commission had. We were asked to rebake the language and address the Planning Commission's issues. I have here the notes of it should be in the sole discretion of the city, so that was a Planning Commission suggestion. If we have an existing development agreement, then we should be able to use this process. What are the unintended consequences? I think Commissioner Kerr asked this, what are the unintended consequences of allowing the development agreement to control? And I think that question was specifically related to the way the applicant had drafted the language in a way that said, hey, we can enter a development agreement and then it's going to govern. But by rephrasing it, I think we're just saying, we can use development agreements, but the language of the development agreement, you know, is going to provide the variation from our code.
Which the sole discretion comment
Yes.
will now control, which we didn't have before, so it lets the city be back in the driver's seat.
I mean, a sole discretion, like the city still, even with the PDO or the.
Well, only in whether or not to grant a variation with the
Right.
development agreement. So it would be up to the city council to decide whether they wanted to allow increased density or increased height or reduced parking. You know, we're just saying, we don't have to. We're putting this in our toolbox, but we don't have to agree to anything. So the developer needs to come to the table with something that really makes sense for the city and still needs to comply with the PDO requirements, which is, it's better than a simple cookie cutter subdivision, or it's bringing something of benefit to the city.
Yeah, it enables more negotiation for what is in the best interest of the city, but also allow the developer to ameliorate some of the challenges that they've had on the site.
Right.
Right, or a new developer who has a really great vision, and we're like, yeah, we see your vision, we can work with you on a solution with that vision, whereas before, it was more presented almost like they were at loggerhead, or one would somehow assume control over the other, and the
Right.
development agreement would consume control over the code, and we're not necessarily wanting that, so this brings that back into the discretion of the city for more of a negotiation tactic.
Okay, rather than one absolute control.
Right, the other, yeah, leapfrogging on top of
Okay,
it.
okay.
And maybe we could even say, because here it says, variations from applicable development standards as part of the PDO legislative decision or in an associated development agreement shall be in the city's sole discretion. And we may want to also say, or even whether to enter into a development agreement is in our sole discretion.
That's a good point.
Because it does just say, yeah, the associated development agreement. Because the last thing we don't want the developer to point to our code and say, you have to
Yeah.
enter into a contract with us, or you have to negotiate with us. We're just saying, if it makes sense for the situation, we can consider it as our choice.
Right, gives us more freedom in that way.
So I like that, yeah. See, different questions and different eyes, you know, bring out different ways to say things in the code.
You know, from a community development, economic development perspective, it's a really strong tool because it does allow us to then sit down with a developer who hopefully is looking at the best interest of the community as part of their project and discuss ways to do that so that everybody mutually benefits from that and/or brings forward mutually beneficial opportunities in situations where maybe they haven't performed as well. In either case, whether it's new or existing, it encourages more of that conversation with this, and it also makes it very clear outwardly to any developer interest what the expectations are, whereas before, with, you know, a shortened statement, which I think this more clearly makes the rules of the game very, very outwardly visible and objectively available, so that everybody can have that conversation.
So do you have proposed language on that last sentence? I may have some suggested.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to say a different section, but it says, or in an associated development agreement shall, you know, I guess we could just add another sentence, you know, in addition, you know, whether to enter into a development agreement or not shall also be within the sole discretion of the city.
Just so that we can chew on it while we're discussing. Variations from, and this is all the same up until the last line. Variations from applicable land use development standards considered as part of a legislative land use decision to rezone property to the planned development overlay zone, or amended, whether to amend or enter an associated development agreement shall be within the city's sole discretion.
Amend or enter.
Whether to amend or enter an associated development agreement. Just let's think about that while we're chatting. Anyways, further questions for staff? I think Commissioner Hoth, you had the floor. Okay, Commissioner Larson.
Yeah, and I missed the first discussion on this, so I'm catching up, but I don't have any specific questions. It all reads pretty good to me.
Okay. All right, well, it's time to open it up to the applicant. If you'd like to come forward, state your name, your position, and if you have anything to add.
No. Glenn Gersberger from J. Fisher Companies. GF Capital has been alluded to, too. No, I appreciate Lisa and Mike's efforts. It's been a collaborative working session for us to try and come together on language on this. I think what you've seen is tools that allows the city greater latitude, but it also allows us as a developer who have been bound by a development agreement and a PDO for 14 years unsuccessfully and unable to have the tools that we need to come before you again and come before the city council to propose changes that are not only equitable but financially viable for this kind of project. So I think it's kind of, in my eyes and our company's view, this is kind of a win-win for both sides. So.
Right, any questions for the applicant? Thanks, sir. I will open up the meeting, given it's a public meeting, to comments from the public, if anybody would like to come forward. And nobody's here.
We do have one person online.
We do?
Yep, but she has.
Okay.
Chief Fisher.
Where are you looking? Oh, yes. All right. Well, that said, unless Jennifer wants to appear as a member of the public.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm with JF Fisher. I'm just participating in support of our group.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Miller. All right. Opening it up to the public, no public appearing. I'll close the public hearing and I'll take it back to the commission for further comment or questions. So, Mrs. Romney, any thoughts on any edits to that last sentence? Or adding a sentence? I'm open to whatever
Yeah,
you think.
I think it would work. The only comment is that the variation portion, so it says variation from applicable land use standards, in a rezone. It used to say in a rezone and the development agreement. So it was talking about both variation by rezone or development agreement. And now it would just be variations with the rezone, and then your language, whether to amend or enter into a development agreement shall be in the city's sole discretion. But I think I can live with that because I think it's implied in the beginning that the variations are part of that. You see what I'm
Would it
saying?
be better to separate it into two sentences?
Yeah, the alternative would just be have a separate sentence. So that one is saying, look, variations, whether by rezone or development agreement, are in our sole discretion. And in addition, whether to even enter into or amend a development agreement is also in our sole discretion.
So leave it as is, and then the additional sentence would be what?
Maybe using your language, whether to amend or enter into a development agreement is also within the city's sole discretion.
Okay. I'll take a motion if somebody's ready. Or I'll lead out.
That's the only change I can really think about, right?
That's the one I would be amenable to.
I move to accept the staff recommendations on the zoning. Where's the, okay. Hereby make a motion for the planning commission to recommend to the city council approval of the submitted plan development overlay zone code amendments per the request from Mitch Vance requesting JF Legacy Partners LLC for a zoning code text amendment regarding ZC 12.41.070 variations from development standards and 12.41.074 development agreements for planned development overlay zones with the language amendment to the request as provided by the Planning Commission as follows. based on the following reasons for action finding.
As
As
follows.
follows,
To add the sentence,
yeah.
sorry to jump in.
No, that's fine,
To
yeah.
add the sentence
Add
whether,
the sentence,
yeah,
whether to amend or enter,
sorry. I did this wrong. The decision to amend or enter a development agreement is also within the city's sole discretion. Sorry about my handwriting.
that's great, no, that's fine, yeah. Okay, so
Read that
with,
again, the decision, the decision whether, or what is it, the decision?
Well, tell me if this makes sense. So the amended language would be as follows. The decision to amend or enter a development agreement is also within the city's sole discretion. And then finish.
so with that amendment, based on the following reasons for action, 1 through 7,
Yep. Second. Any discussion? All right, starting here.
Aye.
Aye.
aye?
Aye. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Moving on to business item number 2, zoning code amendment proposal, 12.54.120 and 12.54.130 signs. Mr. Eggett?
Thank you. So similar to the first item, this was our second item on the August 14th, 2024 meeting. During that meeting, after some good discussion about that and seeking more information, more resources regarding the proposed sign amendment, the Planning Commission made a motion and approved the motion to table it until such time we have that information that was requested. Some of the information that was requested was looking at neighboring city codes for freeway frontages, UDOT signage standards and information, illustrations of existing heights for signs along frontage road, and other associated information. As part of this, there were also some zoning text amendments that were discussed by the Planning Commission during that meeting, and we did make one minor amendment as well to the text to make some more clarity about the boundaries of the associated signage district in this discussion. We have also fulfilled public hearing notice and requirements for posting, and that information is found in your packet, and there were no comments provided prior to the date of the report and/or this meeting tonight. So with that, you'll see that all the all the background and the information therein from that last meeting is the same. I will note that to that point, we've provided the copy of the updated draft language dated now 8/27/2024. What is different is in Article 12.54.120 B3 Big A, the statement that says the Planning Commission may grant a conditional use permit for a freestanding sign over 250 square feet but not exceeding 500 square feet in accordance with the provisions of CZC 12.21.100 has been stripped. Cindy, if you'll go to the next document on that list. There it is, right there in red. That has now been added per the direction of the Planning Commission at our last meeting. And then as you scroll down to page 3, you'll see in that big Article B, there's an addition of to the city limit on the south in parentheses. There was some discussion, actually working with Sydney, where she's like, Mike, this isn't clear, what is this talking about? And I agree, I feel like it wasn't clear, so we made it more clear how that boundary works. So it's from frontage road to 400 west all the way to the city limit on the south, is what it's talking about. Outside of the other districts that had already been further enumerated and clarified previous to this section. So those amendments were made. Going back to now the packet itself, you'll see the public hearing notice was in there. And then the last document that was provided, it says frontage road sign links and outline info, 2024-829. I'm giving all credit to Cindy on this. She did a great job putting it together. You'll see there's linkable. Yeah, I hope it opens up. There you go.
Maybe. I've click it 20 times.
There's a bunch of great links to the information. She did a lot of great research. And to that point, she went and highlighted, again, what areas we're talking about as far as properties and how those are differentiated. You know, you can see in the second image that what we're really talking about is just the strip of properties there along frontage road. All that other stuff, it would not be applicable. I thought that was very helpful. She did a great matrix of her survey of other cities and how that applies. and links to those, and then you can see, following all of her commentary and context, that she has also provided Utah's Outdoor Advertising Act, which really, as was noted in the last meeting and further clarified here with this link, is solely about regulating billboard signage and the application of billboard signage. But you can glean even from UDOT's perspective of how they feel about regulations of those signage standards as it relates to freeways and that messaging. So to that point, I don't know if you're ready, Cindy, but she has put together a
Yeah.
PowerPoint, and I will defer to her to move forward with the PowerPoint and share that presentation with you all.
Absolutely. So let's just get some visuals on what we are talking about. Maybe if we can present this bad boy. Alrighty. So I kind of just wanted to go through what Okay, I just kind of wanted to go through the municipal code and highlight the areas so then you get a good visual of what exactly the zoning code is going over along along Interstate 15. So municipal code 1254, 120, signs in Parrish Lane Gateway Commercial District, and then be aware of the subsection. So subsection B4, freestanding freeway-oriented signs. You can see the highlighted on the right-hand side, the blue. That is the area that they're looking at. And what I want to make aware is that this area is within 600 feet north and south of the center line of Parrish Lane. So right, that's the main street. And the max height is 60 feet. So I just kind of wanted to make y'all aware of that one. I'm going to go on to the next one. This is what it looks like from the highway, right? I just took some like Google images of it, and this is what it looks like as we're driving along the highway. And then hopping in, this is what it looks like within the city limits. So it does look a little bit different.
They look
but
much smaller there, yeah.
But it still has, you can still see the background of the hills and everything. And then of course, when you go into city limits, it does look a little bit more dramatic, as one would naturally think. So the next area that I'm going to focus on is the subsection B6A, which is frontage road, which is 800 west, and that is the west side only. So this little subsection over here, the max height is 60 feet. And then the max area is 200 square feet. So just keep that in mind too. Just kind of wanted to show that. And then you guys already saw the road sections from there. The next one that I want to go over is really what is the Parrish Lane Gateway Commercial District. So before, I originally just thought it was the only what was along frontage road, right? But that is not the case. This whole highlighted area is the Parrish Lane Gateway Commercial District. This is subsection B6B, which is frontage road to 400 west. And this is where I got a little bit confused. There is 400 west, and then there is west 400. So if you guys are not aware of that, I had to be.
400 South, Porter Lane.
Yep,
That's
this area right here, basically it just states that anything that is on the east side of frontage road, as well as anything abutting the east side of 400 west, messed that one up, along 400 west, and then don't do the in parentheses borderline. The max height in here is 25 feet, and the max area is 100 square feet, which is what we are looking at today.
Yeah, that's where the suggested amendment, for those that weren't at our last meeting, that's where the suggested amendment is being looked at, is where that requirement is, looking at a different requirement for frontage roads solely, properties along frontage road.
All right, so this is what we're seeing from the highway, right? This is right along frontage lane. So you guys are probably all very aware of what that looks like. Another area signs, you know, we're really, what I'm curious about what you guys are seeing is it really that much dramatically different than the buildings themselves? And that's kind of something to provoke. And then there was this interesting thing that I drive by every day, and I guess I'd never really thought about that I look at, which is the last one on the right. It is just, it's very dramatic and prominent, but nothing that we can control. So this is what it looks like, obviously, within the city limits. Nothing really too dramatic again, just pretty straightforward, right? So this area.
Clarify, so 25-foot height for the signs.
No. So, wait, yes, 25 foot currently is what it
Is
is
the max
at.
height.
Okay.
That's
Yes.
allowed,
Yep,
yeah, currently.
absolutely.
And that's what we're suggesting be considered, is that the height be allowed to go higher solely along frontage road as it faces the freeway.
And so what I kind of wanted to point out, and the reason why I showed all of these different heights is because just within a couple of feet, it's like only 3,000 feet away, the signage on the image on the left is 60 feet high, right? And then right across the street, it hops down and jumps down into only 25 feet in height, which I think is pretty dramatically different, because even from like a planning perspective, when we talk about proper planning measurements, we talk about stepping down and blending it more seamlessly, and that was just a very dramatic difference. And then, of course, we think about, okay, on the, I think it is the Parrish Gateway Commercial District subsection B6AF, which is Parrish Lane east of 400, the max height is 600 feet along,
Or 60 feet, right?
yes, sorry, 60 feet along the side of property, and then 50 feet when frontage road, the side of the property, max area. So when you're thinking about along Parrish Lane, when you're looking at, let's say, the Walmart, their signage is actually as well, is 60 feet as well, which once again is just kind of, it's just odd to me how it is puzzle pieced together, yet the area that we are trying to get people to come to Centerville on, it still is just so low. So that was just something that I wanted to mention on there.
Well, and some of those may be, so for instance, the Target sign and the Walmart sign are planned center signs that may have additional approvals.
Yes, you're right on that. You're 100% correct on that one. So I was thinking, okay, why are we puzzle piecing these signs? And just naturally thinking, the reason why we want to maybe keep the signs lower is because we want to make sure that we are not hindering the happiness or the life happiness factor of the residents, right? But as we see all along Frontage Lane, it is just solely commercial. So is that something that actually is dramatically impacting the residents in that area? And when we look at the heights of the signage in the other areas of the 60 feet, we also see that that is commercial as well. So that was just another thing to note. And then I was like, okay, so what are the other municipalities really looking at? And this is where the comparison chart kind of came in, and where I wanted to look at what is the current signage face area in the height, which, as we pointed out, the height is 25 feet currently, and the sign face area is 100 square feet. What we are proposing is that it be jumped up to 45 feet in height and 150 square feet in face area. And once again, this is not in the Parrish Lane Gateway District. This is just solely right along frontage, abutting Frontage Lane. So I went in and I wanted to look at West Bountiful, which, looking at this, I'm going to kind of hop through as I talk through it so you guys can kind of see the actual visual images of this. Here we go. So in West Bountiful, Properties located within 150 feet of the interstate of I-51 or I-15, their total square foot area for their facing sign is 250 square feet, and their height is 60 square feet. Once again, ours is 25 feet high and 100 square feet. And then this is what it looks like going down the interstate in West Bountiful. We see this. And then in Bountiful, this was something that I had to really look into. West Bountiful has a majority of the highway, and Bountiful actually does not. So, but they do have an area that states for the highway freestanding signs, which is their area is 60 square feet, first 100 feet of square frontage, increments of 1 square foot per 1 foot square frontage to the maximum height of 120, or not the maximum height, the maximum area of 120 square feet and a height of 40 feet. So once again, we are still well below that as it stands. Next one that we're going to go to is Kaysville, a little bit north of us. And then their area, it was kind of cool to see how they did it. They did it once again in increments. And then immediately adjacent to the I-15 corridor or frontage road, the area we're looking at 300 square feet maximum within 300 feet of I-15, and then of course 200 square feet maximum within 3,000 feet of I-15, and then 120 square feet maximum after that along I-15. And then the heights kind of do that same kind of step back where it's 300 feet within that area of I-15. It's going to be 45-foot maximum height, and then we're going to step back within 3,000 feet. It's going to be 30 feet maximum height, and then so on it goes back.
I find the 3,000 feet fascinating.
I did too.
Really big zone. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of point that out actually on here in that map, how it was pointed out. Because I also thought it was a pretty big setback and a pretty big area, but there it is. So that's what it looks like from the highway. You know, once again, the sign, yes, it is tall, but does it really look that much different than what it looks like in Centerville? In Layton, the location is within the freeway sign corridor, which this was interesting that they actually drew a map identifying the freeway sign corridor, which that is something that kind of is what we do in zoning, but they just really mapped it out for us. And then the area is 200 square feet of developed land. So let's say that there's a building on there, undeveloped land, an empty lot, you're going to have 300 square feet of sign footage. And then the height for both of them is 45 feet max. And this is what it looks like. I wanted to throw in a billboard on there just because I'm not a fan of billboards, and I wanted to make sure everybody sees how dramatic they are compared to the actual signs themselves. All right, and then in Woods Cross, this is actually based on the sign type, not the distance or the zone, which I thought was very unique to what I have actually been learning about in school as well as being here. So the area is 3 square feet per 1 foot of property frontage. That would just be a lot of math on our end, but obviously we would be willing to do that. The maximum square feet for the sign facing would be 500 square feet, and then the height is 25 feet above Interstate I-15 grade level at a point perpendicular to the sign. So that one is not my favorite, I will say that. That would be interesting to kind of work with.
Going back to that one, Cindy,
Absolutely.
it says they could get a conditional use though up to 50 feet tall, right?
Yes.
So there is that option too.
So kind of looking at those, while I was doing my research on those, it made me realize how conservative Centerville has been over the past couple of years with their sign code. And that is something that the planning commission definitely has the right to be and the right to kind of dictate. What I guess I want to point out though is that these signs, the signs that are abutting frontage road are at a lower level of height. And think about how valuable that property is, abutting frontage road, abutting that highway. Developers want that land, and it comes at a hefty price. So then when you're telling developers, okay, you are limited into what you can advertise, meaning the site height, what people can see, and then less than like 5 miles away, they're letting them do it a little bit higher. If I was a developer, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go 5 miles and go to a different town. And that's just something that I wanted to point out, because every municipality surrounding us has a larger sign area and a taller sign height. So that's something that I just wanted to point out. Following that, I know that there was curiosity about UDOT, and as Mike pointed out, UDOT really does not dictate signs that are for the business on the property. UDOT really focuses on signage that is basically billboards, so signs that are advertising outside of the business themselves. And even though that there is no real direction from UDOT about the signage that is advertising within on the property, what it does show is that, okay, let's say in general the maximum height for a sign that is dictated within UDOT standards is going to just be 65 feet, which I want to point out that is still very dramatically taller than what Sunnyside is even proposing of the 45 feet maximum.
You mean Centerville, but yeah.
Sorry,
It's
sorry,
okay. Old
Centerville.
habits die hard, right?
Yes, Centerville, so. And then I just really wanted to pull up what the comparison looks like. So, currently, right now, the signs along frontage road, we see the 25-foot height and the 100 square feet area, and then the proposed 45-foot height and the 150 square foot. So that's what the sign would look like.
At a maximum.
Yes, the maximum.
At a maximum.
Yep, the maximum. The other one, this is for Symphony Homes. Once again, the 25-foot, and then the proposed 45-foot. And then the one that we have all been waiting for, Young Power Sports, what that actually looks like. So right now it is at a 30-foot height and a 90 square foot. And then the proposed would be 45-foot square, or 45-foot height, and then 150 square foot area.
And remember that they would be viewing on there too, just to make that note. They obviously wouldn't be a flat panel.
And then I just wanted to make sure that everyone was kind of aware of the actual height itself is 78 foot for the water tower. So it wouldn't be that their big sign would be up at the very top. It would be higher than it already is, but just wanted to make that clear. And then I also wanted to throw out actually what Lisa was alluding to, which was these signs that are really, really big and audacious. These signs do not even capture what we are proposing right now. That is a 60-foot sign. That is, that big Target sign, that is a 60-foot sign, and that is 496 square feet of surface area. And really what we're doing is we want 45 feet and then 150 square feet of surface area. So it's just a comparison. They're not required to change, nor would this apply to them, but this is just something that I wanted to show by comparison. So really, this is what I had pulled up, and I want to kind of make this clear. I have 5 little bullet points that I want to leave you guys with. Number 1, that we are not looking at all of the parcels in the Parrish Gate Lane District. What this is doing is strictly looking at the signs abutting frontage road. Number 2, it focuses on balancing the preservation of Centerville's scenic views while still allowing for the businesses to be more visible from the interstate. Number 3, it follows UDOT guidelines that take into consideration the safety hazards and the scenic byway preservations. 4, it ensures Centerville stays competitive by allowing business owners to market their business along the interstate, similar to what is offered by other municipalities. And then number 5, it provides a clear framework for sign placement that aligns with both local needs, state regulations, ensuring clarity and consistency for all of the stakeholders involved. I think that those 5 bullet points is really what I tried to snoop out for the other municipalities. And what I kind of got from this was Centerville has the chance to really dabble with the question of the weight of, is this sign ordinance really affecting the residents so much that the gravity and the effect that it will have on the business owners, is that really weighed out properly, or is it a little bit skewed right now? So that's my little presentation on that. If you guys have any questions, or if you guys want me to hop back to some slides, I'm more than welcome to answer them or hop back to them.
Thank you, Ms. Deweese. That was great.
Absolutely.
All right, questions for staff?
So you're saying this particular one that we're looking at right now would not have to change, even though you were showing us how big it is, 496?
It's a big one.
Yeah, the only reason why is because it's in a, what did you call it, Lisa?
So it's a plant center sign, and the idea behind those is you'll see that we've got Home Depot, Kohl's, and Target all on one sign, so we don't have to clutter the entire frontage with 4 or 5
almost better
different
to have them
signs.
collaborate together.
Exactly, so
Absolutely.
we allow greater, but we say, and it even says that planned centers, each individual lot cannot have its own sign.
Right,
It
they don't
has
get
to
their
go
own
on the
full sign
planned
as a
center
turn.
side.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
As a trade-off.
So that was just me kind of showing you that it's not, these signs that we are proposing right now are not going to be anything near that gravity. It's going to be dramatically small.
Again, at maximum.
Right.
The one there, okay.
So the ones that are all along frontage road, I think it starts at this one.
And these are all marketing signs, correct? The different companies would pay to be on these?
Well, no, it's the on-site sign for the business at that location.
Oh,
So they each,
Not billboards,
they're
if that's
each-
what you're thinking.
Oh,
by
yeah.
code, right now by code, they're currently each allowed one pole sign on their location, but it can't be any taller than 25 feet, and it can't be any bigger than 100 square feet.
okay,
If they're on a planned center with 2 frontages, they can
Then
have
they
2
can
pole
have-
signs.
okay.
Yep.
That one would be, okay.
And I want to also kind of point out too, there are quite a few businesses in other municipalities that do not go up to the maximums. There
Yeah,
are also a lot.
because they like the aesthetic of it being smaller. But
There's
it's probably
also-
cheaper, let's be honest.
There's actually scientific angles too. They actually will study how cars view them.
Yeah.
And they know when too high is too high, and they
Yeah.
kind of know where to hit the right
That makes
viewer
sense.
angle. Yep,
Yeah, I feel like symphonies are really good eye level when you're driving.
yep.
At this point, we are just allowing for more flexibility for developers in the future, or if business owners want to do this in the future. It also is a really high selling point for Centerville, just saying that we're up to par with the other municipalities. With that being said, once again, it's just weighing out whether or not it is a larger hindrance to the residents, or it is I think last time we called it a eyesore. Was that the word that was thrown around?
Someone might have said that, I don't know.
That, one of those. I love the hills. I love the hills. And what I saw looking at the different angles and the
It
different
didn't distract from the
municipalities.
view of the mountains.
I really didn't think so.
It was
but-
funny when she saw the big white building. I have to tell you a funny anecdote about that. She saw the white building, she goes, "What is that thing? It's huge and it's distracting and look how tall it is. It's huge." She said, that thing as big as it is probably impacts the corridor more than any sign at 45 feet tall would impact the corridor visibly. I thought that was an
And what
interesting
white thing
comment.
was that?
Air products.
The Air,
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha.
the Air Products building.
This is their tanks, basically, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. It was kind of an interesting comment.
Oh, okay, yeah, right there.
Yeah. I thought
Yeah,
that
those
was an
are,
interesting
my
comment.
kids always think those are refineries. I'm like, no.
All right, further questions for staff? Hearing none, moving on, opening up to the applicant, who is not here.
Well, we're
Moving
the
on.
applicant on this one, so.
Yeah, fair enough. I thought it was also spurred on by Young Powers.
It
Plus,
is,
but-
yeah,
but
I guess
Either
indirectly.
way, it's
yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Moving on, opening up for a public hearing. No public appearing, no comments submitted, closing the public hearing, taking it back to the commission for a motion.
There we go. There we go. I hereby make a motion for the planning commission to recommend to the city council approval of the request from the Centerville Community Development Department for a zoning code text amendment regarding CZZ 1254-120 signs in Parrish Lane Gateway, Commercial District, and CZZ 1254-130 signs in commercial zones with the following reasons for action findings 1 through 5. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a first and a second. Further discussion? I was fine last time, so I'm
I'm not super concerned
kind of in
with it.
favor.
I feel like we should maybe talk longer just to give her like the due credit where that.
No, honestly, y'all, it does not bother me. I just wanted to make sure that I encompass that other municipalities are doing this, and I just want to make sure that.
They're jumping off a cliff, we'll do it with them.
Yep, exactly.
But we'll have
Everybody
life
get your
preservers
puberty.
on.
We'll have life, okay.
All right, motion and a second. I'll start here with Commissioner Hoth.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous and it passes. Moving on to, Community Development Director's Report, Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. There is something I wanted to note. We do want to bring forward a similar survey that's been done here for fencing. If you remember back in April, I think it was, we had that test with the resident, Mr. Jensen, regarding fencing and wall standards, and he submitted an idea, which it was a great effort by him, but we ultimately felt like it wasn't quite the right approach, and so staff was tasked with working on that update. We are going to work on a survey, bring that survey of information back to the planning commission at the next meeting, and get some kind of ideas of things you do like and don't like, and what feels right as far as what we need to look at amending within the fence code, and then we'll advertise it for a public hearing and bring it back the following meeting with updated code language to debate and discuss with that public hearing. So I just wanted to make sure you know that that's our next targeted code amendment that we're going to discuss. If there are other things, though, that you as commission feel are high priority things that you've noted with the code or residents have brought up that you think should be, I know in the beginning of the year when I wasn't here, there was a priorities document put together with Whitney at the beginning of the year. If there are things specifically on that list that you want us to also look at going forward, please let me know so that we can look at those. And we will do similar presentations. As you can see, she's very good at what she does when she pulls together a survey and a presentation. So we're going to do fencing next and see where that takes us. Fencing and walls. But, you know, I will note that I have received since that meeting even an email from Mr. Jensen, probably about maybe 4 weeks ago now, 5 weeks ago, and he's saying, what is the status on it? So I know he's still very interested in solving the dilemma where his home, if you remember, is down low versus his neighbors, which is up here. So we'll work on that and bring something forward. That may be the only item on that agenda at the next meeting. We do have a potential subdivision discussion that's forthcoming I don't know when it will potentially come to the planning commission, but just know that that is forthcoming. It would be a commercial subdivision in nature, so we'll leave it at that for now. But I believe that, is there anything you can think of I'm missing that we've talked about,
No.
that the planning commission should know? Yeah. So that's everything I would report at this time. Is there anything you can think of, Lisa, that I'm missing? Trees, how did the tree discussion go with the council? I wasn't here.
Trees in the park strip, yes, is very mixed.
Still very mixed.
Still very mixed.
But,
Was this a discussion item? I didn't follow it closely enough, and I should have, but I didn't. So there was no vote taken, or there was?
no, they tabled it again,
Okay.
so I think it was, they just weren't ready to act yet. But, you know, it's a difficult
It is.
decision. And I think at the last one, staff had presented some compromised, coming back to, you know, if the tree's not causing any damage, then we would allow it to stay during the project, you know, the street overlay project. But if it is causing damage, and or, you know, or the tree's unhealthy, then it should come out. So that's kind of where it is right now, and so we'll see whether we, I don't even know if we're bringing back text amendments to them, but the direction
Good to know.
is.
All right, anything else? Very good. Moving on to review of the minutes. I'll take any comments or edits. It's always a good signal that there are none. That means,
I have no edits.
means the city staff are doing a spectacular job.
I will note, out of appreciation for her efforts, Jennifer Robinson, our city recorder, has picked up doing minutes for the planning commission, and I think she's doing a great job, so I just wanted to note that that handoff has taken place, and we appreciate her efforts thus far.
I'll take a motion to commend Jennifer Robinson.
Second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. That passes unanimously. I will take a motion to approve the minutes unamended.
Make a motion to approve the minutes
I second.
from August 28th,
I second your motion.
not amended.
Very good. Swiftly on the heels, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll take a motion to close.
I second.
Well,
I make a motion we close.
very good. I'll second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Great. Well done, everybody.
Beautiful.
Nice work on the PDO stuff.
Yeah, that was great.
That was quite a meeting before.
Were you the photographer on all that?
I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit nervous to come tonight, like, what do we have in store for us?
Well, I'm glad you guys like the minutes. She is using some AI software that summarize things. But the input from the city council is that it was really good at parceling out public comment, but then when it came to actual city council comments, it didn't really say anything. It just had all this public comment